What's up, you guys? It's your boy Harish. This is my boy Tim Wayne, and this is our boy
Yo.
Wes.
Good to be here,
Tim, how
man.
you
Thanks for
doing
having me.
tonight, man? Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you coming on. Tim, how you doing tonight?
Man, it's a good night. It's hot. Summer's here. For y'all, it's for a lot of other people around the country. It's springtime, and like they're walking around with like shorts on. I'm going to buy me a Stanley thermos. I'm on it. Like I have a cup,
Okay.
but I'm going to get me a thermos because at 1 p.m. today it was 98 degrees with a heat index of 109, and it is May. So
Sounds like Texas.
yeah. I'm getting me a Stanley thermos ASAP. I've been looking already. I'm gonna get some. I'm gonna get a manly color. Maybe see if I can find some burnt orange in there.
Hey, fair
There
enough.
you go.
Wes, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it's an exciting time to work in the industry, specifically for the outlets that represent the University of Texas, and it's also fun to be a college football fan. There's a lot of change, and so I'm excited to kind of get into it. But like what Tim said, just going back on the Stanley part of things, I also have a Stanley Cup. My wife put me on. If you drink 4 a day, I believe that's 160 ounces of water, which would get you over your gallon mark if you were somebody who tracks the amount of water you drink. That thing's been a lifesaver, man. I love my Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
So I'm still a Yeti guy because I'm still Team Yeti.
Hey,
I have a Yeti.
Plenty of Yeti cups. Actually, have one right here that I use for my coffee. No, there's not coffee in there. My wife has a Stanley Cup and she swears by it. I know, like a lot of the Stanley folks out there, and I have just not yet dived into Stanley as of yet.
I have a Yeti. The Stanley just works for staying hydrated better. You don't have to refill it all the time, I guess.
That's fair. No, that's fair. Because you've got the big one that essentially once you drink the whole thing, you're done.
Yeah, pretty much. And then you drink
enough.
another full one like 3 or 4 hours later, and then you just kind of repeat the cycle until you're done.
Yeah.
That is totally fair. Well, guys, let's get right into it. Before we do, as always, gotta pay the bills here. FanBattlesports.com, where you can get the latest and greatest from the AFC South, including the Mayo-Eaton Titans, the Texans, who apparently have a quarterback now, the Colts, who have a very good quarterback and a former Longhorn, and, of course, the Jaguars, who still cannot have back-to-back good seasons. FanBattlesports.com. If you want to start your own podcast, hit us up in the contact us section. Give us all your information, and we'll set you up with a beautiful setup, sort of like this. FanBattlesports.com. Follow us on Twitter at LHFanBattle. We've hit the 2,500 follower threshold, which is awesome. We really appreciate all the support. Continue to follow us. Tell your neighbors, tell your aunts, tell your uncles, tell your dogs, tell everybody at LHFanBattle. And of course, follow us on YouTube. We are close to 50 followers, and this has been a cool journey. We've been on YouTube since we started, but to see us finally actually make a push and get to that 50 follower threshold is pretty awesome. 2 followers get us to 50. We're actually planning, Tim and I are planning on doing something around EA Sports College Football 25. As you guys know, we're very, very excited for it. And as you'll find out, Wes is also excited for it. So follow us on YouTube. And you do what?
We're giving away a PlayStation.
That is not what we're doing. Tim is giving us false information. We are not doing that.
Hey man, I'm trying to get the numbers
maybe like a 5,000 follower on YouTube kind of thing. Well, maybe we'll do something like that.
Nah, man,
but, that's definitely
think of everybody, man. Get them out there early.
Tim, stop. Let's not do that.
I'm just trying, man. I'm trying to get the numbers up.
Hey, fair enough. Well, hey, follow us on YouTube, Longhorn Fan Battle. And before we get into today's topic, we're going to expand on House versus NCAA, which we briefly spoke about on Thursday's show.
Yep.
Before we get into that, Wes, why don't you introduce everyone to you? Introduce yourself to everyone. Let us know how you became a part of OrangeBloods.com, how you got there, kind of what your history is, and yeah, we kind of go from there.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. I would say my journey with Orange Blood started about 8 months ago is when I guess I explored, doing something with Orange Bloods, and it kind of all came into fruition at the beginning of this year. So basically, I grew up a diehard Longhorn fan through my dad. My dad went to Macomb School of Business and was, I would say, more of a maniacal fan. Like no maroon in the house, you can't have a maroon shirt. Like he was very, very, very in love
That is
with the
fantastic.
Longhorns. I remember being, let's see, this is in 2001. So I was 7 years old. No, this is 2000. So I was 6 years old. I remember watching Chris Sims throw 4 picks in the Big 12 championship game, only for Major Applewhite to come in, try to kickstart a roaring comeback. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Texas missed out on national championship berth. I have been involved with every part of Texas Longhorns football, at least from a fan perspective, since the year 2000 that I can actually remember. So
Nice.
my blood runs orange as well. I love it when A&M loses. I'm one of the weird fans. I actually hate A&M more than Oklahoma, but I do find myself kind of wanting success for the Aggies, so that way it becomes a rivalry that's not obsolete anymore, with Texas being at the top of the football food chain and playing a dumpster fire of a program. But I actually do think my Elko will turn that around regardless. Like I said, my fandom really was kickstarted by my dad at a young age. And in July of last year, I lost my dad. And so what I wanted to do was, I appreciate that. And something I had always wanted to do is similar to what you guys are doing now, right? Starting a YouTube channel where I could provide some in-depth analysis around either the football or the basketball side. As most people know, I'm a retired collegiate athlete. I played basketball in college. But I've always loved the game of football. Football is the sport that I love. Basketball is the sport that I played. It's kind of a weird relationship that I have between the two. But I made several videos, a lot of which did really well. I had some that, got 4K views. I made one talking about Joey McGuire and Brett Yormark, and Texas Tech fans did not like me for that. I can drop a link if you guys want to give it a watch. It's kind of funny. But
I'd actually love to see that.
Basically, Keenan Womack was the previous basketball guy at Orange Bloods prior to me. He left Orange Bloods, and it prompted me to reach out to Catch. And I told him that, this is my pedigree, within the sport of basketball. These were my accolades. This is who I was as a player. This is my resume, essentially. And so we had a few conversations. I did a mock article based on when Texas had played Houston in Austin, and Houston, won that game pretty handily. And he thought it was really good. So we continued to talk. I had some experience on camera, and eventually he had asked me to join the team. And so that's awesome. That's how I got here. And it's been a blessing, man. I really enjoy it. It's kind of surreal. I've been a member of Orange Blood since I was 13 with my dad. We shared an account, so it's a little surreal, kind of putting names to faces in person with a lot of the people whose content I've been reading almost my entire life.
That's awesome.
That's super cool. Tim and I have followed Catch. So Catch and the guys had like a gathering, like a meetup. What was that? Like probably September, October. And I met Catch there and Chad, and I was like, hey man, us two, we've been listening to you since we were in high school.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh shit. They were like, oh God. Like those guys, right? Because kind of put perspective to like how long they've been in the game.
Yeah.
So it's super cool to be able to interact with Catch and Chad, and we love them. And we watched, we've had Anwar on the show, we've had Chad on the show, so we really appreciate you spending some time with us to kind of dig a little bit deeper into this, because as we've kind of touched the surface on it last Thursday, but you've kind of dug into this, as you mentioned before. So we're very excited to have you on. We appreciate you coming on. So
of course.
Let's dig right into it, gentlemen. So House versus NCAA, of course, as you guys know, it's kind of broken into two main parts, right? Part number one is there's a group of athletes, from what I understand, a former women's basketball player and a former soccer player or a swimmer. I can't remember who.
I believe it's a
who
swimmer.
Yeah, who essentially sued the NCAA because NIL occurred, and they were basically saying, "Hey, what about us?" Because they were in that last essentially recruiting class or senior class that kind of missed out on NIL. So they basically filed a lawsuit. Tim kind of briefed us about it 3 months ago as it started happening, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I think last week, a resolution was met, and that resolution just kind of came out of nowhere. And there's two things that happened from that resolution. Number one, athletes that participated in NCAA Division I sports from 2016 to 2021 were a part of a $2.3 billion settlement. Part number two to that, and the most intriguing part to this, and we kind of dug into this, is there is some sort of pay-to-play incentive potentially for all Division I schools and all sports moving forward. So that's the kind of the piece that I want to dig into today. So I think I want to start, Tim. I want to start with you. Kind of give us your take both of those things and kind of give us your thoughts as you hear about what those results are of this current ruling, I guess you could say.
Well, I mean, again, everything moves so slow. Again, we covered this back in February, maybe even earlier than that, in regards to just the rumors swirling around that there was an issue or that there could be a lawsuit, ahead of us. Of course, it was grazed over because we didn't have enough information. So when the news came down that there was a settlement, I would say this settlement was remarkably fast. It really took no time. I honestly thought when we got to the point to where a lawsuit would be made, this would be a long, drawn out, type of, situation here. But it wasn't. And $2.9 million is a significant. I'm sorry, $2.3 billion is a lot of money to just come up off of. My question it really wasn't my thought, and this is more as we talked about getting Wes here from Orange Bloods on the show, was more geared towards Wes, was like, what's going to happen to these collectives, right? What do these collectives? Where do they come into play? Because that was a big deal about the NIL, right? We knew that there was going to be collectives mainly upon the bigger schools, but we how do they play in to these new changes that are happening? Also, does the new TV deals that are coming, does that play a factor in the NIL as well? Like how does all of this get resolved in such a fast time? Because again, we're less than 100 days away from the start of the season. After that, what the first transfer portal type situations in December. That's not far away. Like that's relatively close. So how is the collective affected? Is this going to affect any deals that are already set in place? And what are the next steps? Like where do we go next? That's kind of what's been on my mind the entire weekend.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. And I think a lot of those things might still be unknown, right? I think really what we know is there's money out there to be had.
Right.
There's two schools that we know of, one that we're fans of.
Right.
That's probably going to be the most beneficiary, if not the second most beneficiary of this ruling. And we just kind of see from there, it's kind of the Wild West, kind of like when NIL was the same way, right? All of a sudden, one day somebody came in and was like, all right, guys, there's NIL, have a good time. Like there's really no baseline that was ever set for it. Wes, I think you can give us some insights here. Kind of where your thoughts at right now today. What are some things that you have already covered around this, and kind of where can we go from here?
Yeah, I think the first thing, excuse me, is to identify. Just going back to what Tim had referenced with the collectives piece, because from what my understand now is that when NIL came to the forefront of a lot of these conversations, it was detached from the athletic department, right? Meaning that the athletic department had no say in how funds through the NIL collective were distributed to players or through other third parties that were doing endorsement deals through players or their agents or what have you. So I believe that will still stay the same, right? These collectives that have been set up for NIL will still be there. And then the money that has been through this lawsuit, evidently, I believe it was referenced as an amount that is what was the word? Basically, the $20 million amount that is being discussed through this lawsuit is a recommended baseline. Think about it that way.
Okay.
Now, that being said, that money is through the athletic department. So the way that I like to think about it is that essentially these players that will be on the roster based off of performance, other what would kind of resemble contract-based incentives will be making money through the athletic department, meaning they're almost salaried football players now at this point.
Right.
And so that's interesting, right? As a former athlete myself, I've always struggled a little bit with this conversation on how I should feel, right? As a former player. But there's going to be a very large discrepancy in how Division I athletes are going to be compensated. Not everybody's going to be making the same amount, right? It's going to be highly based off of the amount of money that your sport generates for the athletic department. Now, pivoting back to NIL, a lot of big money donors that are pooling money into these collectives, these NIL collectives, or giving money straight to the athletic department, evidently now.
Right.
For the most part, they can control where that money flows.
Okay.
Sort of. It's like, hey, I'm going to write you a check, let's say, for $500,000. I want you to use this for X. Now, whether the school or whether the collective ends up spending money on that depends on the relationship they have with whoever's pulling money to the NIL collective or to the athletic department. Mm-hmm. But I will say at least there's some regulation there. The problem with this conversation moving forward is essentially that there is no regulation. You have recommended baselines. You have you have no idea. Like what's going to happen now is more of what's happening in Florida right now with the former quarterback suing Billy Napier and the Florida Gators. I asked Chad this on Buy or Sell on Thursday or on Friday, I believe, and I asked him, "Do you think that if Jimbo Fisher was still employed at A&M, that he would have been facing lawsuits?" Because as well as everybody else in the football world, that he made promises from an NIL perspective that he could not keep. Correct. Now with athletic departments being able to distribute funds to players individually, oh boy, we're going to enter the Wild West of what this is going to look like moving forward.
I think digging deeper into the Jalen Rashada thing, wasn't there a supposed contract that was signed? And that's kind of where the whole lawsuit comes from. Billy Napier, maybe it's Billy Napier in Florida signs a contract with Jalen Rashada. Does the athletic department know about this contract? Is this a known contract in Florida internally? I think that's the bigger piece of that whole thing. I'm hoping that Billy Napier doesn't go off on his own and say, "All right, Jalen, there's this contract. I got you, bro." Mm-hmm. And then they're going against that, which knowing what's going on in Florida right now,
it shouldn't sound like that, though. It sounds like Billy made a promise, jumped the gun, made a promise, he committed, and then probably brought this information to his collective, and they were like, "What are you doing?" So then he has to go back on his word, and then Rashad goes to somewhere else, and then he
ends up at Georgia, right?
Yeah, Georgia.
Yeah.
Definitely interesting conversation to be had. I think that we're going to see many more Jalen Rashadas coming to the forefront over the next few months. That's my prediction. Because once NIL came to be a focal point of, deciding where high school football players are going to play their college ball, I'm sure there was a lot of under the table dealing, a lot of shady stuff going on that players are going to bring to the forefront of a pretty wild conversation.
So Wes, let me ask you this in regards to that. You feel like we'll see a bunch of Rashadas coming out of the woodworks here in the future. What do these schools do? Do they go in and they settle immediately, like just to kind of clear the slate? Go ahead and look. We're going to pay you a flat fee. Let's call bygones be bygones. Sorry that this happened and go on the way. Or do they try to go and stretch this out again? Go for the long ball and just really we're gonna fight this. We're gonna fight every case We've got the type of money that we can do that. It's going to be us versus you. Which one do you think that kind of falls upon?
The former. And the reason why I say that is we don't really have, I would say, data to represent how this conversation is going to play out yet. And I think we're going to learn a ton from the Jalen Rashada case is going to pave the way for how these conversations are going to look like moving forward. So if you take it from the player perspective,
right,
that's free money essentially, right? And the school probably won't offer a hefty settlement, but a pretty good settlement, in my opinion. I'm assuming this the athletic department schools are going to want to settle out of court over and over and over and over and over again. The minute things go to court, the minute it becomes a distraction for the entire athletic department, whether that's football, baseball, basketball, volleyball, what have you. It's kind of like a black mark on a school, if you would. Like you're in the media, you have poor representation. So I would see this as being settling out of court as soon as possible. And we're going to learn a lot from how the Jalen Rashada case actually gets settled, which I think it will.
One question.
Go ahead.
I was actually going to go back to something you mentioned earlier, Wes. So go ahead, Tim.
So to kind of continue off of that, do you think that, whenever these schools, because again, I feel the exact same way you feel in regards to that. I do feel that there will be more that comes forward. How do you think that would affect recruiting?
Poorly, extremely poorly, because what it shows, unless you're a school that had the reputation of being very buttoned up, or in the public eye, you were very buttoned up in the way that you ran everything from an NIL perspective, which I believe in this particular use case, Texas was absolutely one of those schools. If you can remember when NIL became a talking point and evidently the number one thing in recruiting, not holistically, but in a lot of conversations, what we always heard was, at the beginning at least, well, Texas is behind, man. Like, look what A&M's doing. Look at what Ohio State's doing. Look at what Georgia's doing. It's because Texas wanted to line the pins up and then knock them all down, right? They wanted to understand how to navigate this conversation without just rushing to the forefront as soon as possible. And so how does that affect recruiting? Horribly. In my opinion, if you make conversations if you make promises that you cannot keep, and money is involved in those conversations, and now in this new day and age of college football, money is going to be priority number one in the majority of conversations. Like, guys, we all know that Brandon Baker went to Texas because of the NIL potential and the amount of money that he could potentially make in Austin. Moving forward, if the athletic department is in charge of being able to distribute funds to their players, that is going to be priority number one in a lot of recruitments. If you make promises around money you can't keep, you're not going to win anybody.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think that becomes more important. Now, this is supposed to go into effect starting 2025. So I guess going back to Brandon Baker, this could potentially swing his recruitment, either keep it, because he's still currently, I don't think he's decommitted from Texas yet. He's still committed to Texas. Is that right?
He's rostered. He was actually an early enrollee, so he went through spring ball already.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about Baker from the defensive tackle.
Yeah.
In next year's recruiting class. So, I guess when we talk about recruiting, and maybe this is something you and Chad talked about briefly, how early does that conversation get to happen? And then secondarily, you mentioned earlier about the collectives and the checks that they write and they get to decide how that's distributed. Can the collectives now say, hey, here's $500,000. This needs to go directly to Brandon Baker, but we'll put it in your account or whatever that is?
Yeah, I think that they would just write that check instead of to a collective directly to the athletic department and say, at that point, this is what I want to do with it. Whether it gets distributed that way, we have no idea.
Right.
But what you were saying, what was your question prior to the Brandon Baker question?
Is that possible? Is that how that works? Can the collective say, hey, I want this to go to the athletic department for this purpose? And then what is the paper trail behind that to make sure that that's occurring?
That's a good question. And I'm not sure. I'm really not sure what that looks like. I remember your question prior, though, is how soon can that conversation be had? I'm assuming it's happening today. I'm assuming it was happening yesterday and Friday. I believe that as soon as this came to be a major talking point in the media, schools and recruiting conversations were already talking about, hey, as you already know, this is happening through your recruitment thus far. Take Texas, for example. We've been telling you about this illustrious alumni network that we have here and this basically Pandora's box of endless possibilities. Now we can compensate you from the athletic department to your wallet directly. You know that we are the biggest, baddest player in this game, and let's have a conversation once it becomes legal for us to have a conversation.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
And so I would assume that definitely talks already being had behind the scenes for sure.
The other piece to this is Texas's general manager role, right? Brandon Harris.
Yep.
Is Brandon Harris the guy that kind of facilitates these conversations? Roster management comes to mind. Players in, players out. What impact does it have on roster management? And then how does that kind of bring, in your opinion, Brandon Harris's role deeper into this conversation?
Good question. I would say that as a player, when you see another player getting all the accolades, getting all the reward, getting all the recognition, as a player, that pisses you off because you feel like, well, I work just as hard as you do. I feel like I could be deserving of X. Now we're taking away playing time and end of season accolades, and we are throwing money into the conversation. Right. From a roster management perspective, I can see this throwing a very large wrench in things. Very large wrench in things. We've seen behind the scenes of players that have been here at Texas. They find out some other players making more in terms of NIL. They feel like they can hop in the portal, go somewhere else, and make more money. Yep. Now you don't have to go through NIL. You can just go to the athletic department that's promised you the most money. In Jalen Rashada's case, maybe put pen to paper. Right. So Brandon Harris has a hell of a job to do on his hands because we all know the football players, specifically wide receivers, but football players in general, they got egos, man. And they are one step away now from the big time. They're one step away from the show. Right. And so a lot of players, this is their professional football. Like, this is their new reality. College sports in front of everyone's face just became semi-professional sports.
Yep.
That 100%.
That's really a fantastic way to put that. I guess my question is from a standpoint of like, I don't like thinking like this, but could we potentially see players holding out for more money? Could we potentially see more players holding out?
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about
college. Could we see more players holding out to see what other schools have to offer? Maybe they weren't able to get on at Oregon, or maybe they weren't offering more at Oregon, so they went to Alabama. Yeah. Now they don't like what's going on at Alabama and what they have to offer. Oregon comes back and say, "Hey, we give you this, but you got to wait till the transfer portal." So they might sit out, or hey, we'd like to offer you this, but you have to wait till next year. So of course, you want to be safe, you want to protect yourself at that point. What if it's during the season? We don't know that schools, whether they want to say it or not, they talk to players and communicate with players throughout the year, whether it's through players, whether it's through social media, whether it's through other avenues. They find a way to communicate with the players that they want. That's realistic. How do you think that affects that?
I don't think at all. And the reason why I'm saying that is because if you think about professional sports, right? If a player is holding out, well, that player signed a contract, right? That player is now part of the salary cap. Salary cap has to come into the conversation with salaries on contract come into play with. If you cut that player, well, now you owe them millions of dollars, or now you have to own them this or that. What we're going to see in college football is contracts around, if you do not do X, if you do not do Y, you will not be compensated. Number one. Right. Number two, in the NFL, which is the only thing I compare this to at this point, if you want to cut a player, you got to go to the general management office. You have to talk to, there's a ton of jumping through hoops, sort of, to kind of go through this from a financial perspective. Right. If you're Steve Sarkisian, you can say, get the hell off my football field.
Right.
You're gone. Bye-bye. And that's the end of that conversation. Unless they have in talks some other way that this contract or whatever has been structured. So I don't think that this is going to be an apples to apples comparison with the NFL, because there's no salary cap and all that stuff, right?
Right. Yep.
But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the last thing I wanted to ask you and is structured around. It's something that I just had it in my head and I drew a blank. Incentives.
Yeah.
Right. How do incentives works? Also, do these contracts become year to year? And then I remember now. Scholarships. Right now you have a scholarship limit. I think it's 85 players that you can have on scholarship, and you can have up to 100 players on the roster. Yep. I've been reading, and I think something that's been that's going away. So there will be unlimited. Everybody's on scholarship at that point, right? So
pretty much.
How does this impact walk-ons, right? Because that's been a huge thing to fill a lot of rosters in the past. And then the other interesting thing is, how do you structure a roster with the idea that there's an unlimited amount of space that you have on the roster? I think is something else that'll be very fascinating as well.
It's a great question. So I think about Bert Auburn in this case, right? So Bert Auburn was a walk-on, never had a scholarship, probably makes a significant amount of money through NIL. And the reason why that's important is because if you can take players and just provide them money through other means outside of a traditional scholarship offer, technically you can have players that aren't on scholarships. That's why the walk-on conversation becomes so interesting, right? Those players will probably all be elevated to scholarship. Players that are already established and doing well or whatever, maybe as far as the books are concerned, you can take them off a scholarship and provide them their money through, or you can provide them monetarily through some other means. This is going to get really shady. It's going to get really shady.
That's nasty work. That's nasty work.
It's going to get real shady for sure. But what was your question prior to the scholarship question?
So scholarships, and then previous to that, incentives. Do these contracts these deals or this money? Does it become? It can't become over 4 years, right? You can't say, "All righty, Wes, for the next 4 years, you'll make $10 million," or is it broken down into, "Hey, Wes, as a freshman, these are the things that you'll make this much as a freshman," and we kind of renegotiate every year?
I think we're going to see a combination of both. To be honest, I think it's going to be on a per player basis because we don't have any data to work off of yet, right? Like we don't know. Until we see something in writing, we just don't know. But I do know that in these contracts, if you decide to transfer, what have you, the schools probably aren't going to require the player to pay that money back. Like who knows what this is going to look like? But I do know that what you just asked, it'll be a combination of both. And when you think about incentive-based contracts, this is why I hate this discussion, because you are telling 17, 16, 18-year-old kids, if you can come win a national championship for me, you'll make X million amount of dollars.
Sure. That's a lot of pressure.
For children. You know what I mean? The thing that was so awesome about college athletics was you could say, hey, we can provide you with all the tools we can put tools in your toolbox to where even if football doesn't work out, you will have a career through our alumni network, or you will come to school, we'll pay for your books, we'll pay for your meals, we'll pay for your housing. You can come play football for us. And if you do well, maybe, just maybe, you'll even go to the NFL, right? It was those two conversations. Now it's like, hey, 16-year-old at some 3A school in East Texas, we'll pay you $1 million when you walk in the door. What the hell's an 18-year-old kid going to do with $1 million?
Ask for $1,000,001. That's it.
Pretty much.
The only thing I could think of at that time. Like it's not to a point to where, like you said, you kind of take the amateurism out of it. This is gone.
This is
amateur.
professional sports.
Yeah, this is a professional sport.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, also it's going to get really nasty, and I can just see people just going in and just kind of almost dirty macking, like, oh, you don't want to go there. We could pay you X amount of XYZ. We have coaches here.
You know what I was thinking of? I was thinking of basketball programs in particular that make a ton of money.
That was my next question.
Through their program. Let's take a Villanova, for example, right? Or a Vanderbilt or a Purdue. Schools that have a pretty good endowment, probably generate a lot of money through their athletic department. Well, guess what, guys? You can have 12 scholarship players on a rostered collegiate basketball roster at the Division I level, right?
Right.
Or maybe it's 15. Regardless, do you know how much money those guys are going to be making because the roster is so much smaller in comparison to a school that's got 45, 50 rostered players on the sideline of a college football game? What you're going to see now is college athletes becoming the new age rapper or the new age rock star, or you are putting these guys into a limelight that they've never had before because money was never the number one talking point to why they are who they are, right?
Well,
so it's going to be wild.
It's going to be. You talked about basketball, right? You go even smaller than that. Hell, I'm gonna make some golf, tennis.
Yeah.
What happens to
golf
those
in particular?
Yeah, golf is very interesting because those are like what 4 or 5 scholarships.
Yeah, something like that. And you know what's going to help is it's going to help baseball. So the problem with baseball is, well, unless you're like a first round draft pick, right, and you're making tens of millions of dollars guaranteed. But Texas had a hard time for a little bit signing some really, really quality guys, and then they would enter the MLB draft. Off they go into the minors, and that's that. Now, if you can pay these dudes a little bit, I mean, the average 2A player makes like $60,000 a year, if that, probably less. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. But this is going to become a war zone.
Yeah, and I think that you talk about recruiting. You go to the next class, right? Hey, Wes in 2025 is going to make $2 million. I'm rated higher than Wes. Why do I only get $2 million in my offer, or $3 million, or $1 million, whatever the case might be? Because you know what? Again, like you mentioned before, these are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. They're not keeping that contract to themselves. They don't do it now with NIL. So what makes you expect them to do it with real money?
You know
Wes
what I'm
is
hoping?
Going to come to me. Yeah, you're going to come to me like, dude, I just got paid $2 million and signed with Texas. What's up? You coming with me?
Yeah, that's what I would do. Are you you're damn right. I'm 17 years old, 100%. You know, the thing is that what I'm hoping is that this new era of collegiate athletics that we are about to usher in, it will go by as smoothly as NIL. Because I remember when NIL came to be, everyone was freaking out the players were going to get compensated. So now that we've kind of cut through the BS and now we can pay players direct, I'm hoping to God that this does not destroy the sports world that I love, because there is nothing better than the pageantry on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock when you wake up and you see 2 schools on Big Noon Kickoff or whatever. Basically, it's like that's why college sports is so fun. Right. It's because you're playing for something more than money. Well, not anymore.
Just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as long as the pageantry and stuff continue, I think maybe, there'll be some offset to it. And really the casual fan, the casual fan probably won't know too much of a difference as long as the pageantry stays the same.
Well, casual fans are the people who won't shut the hell up about it. Casual fans are the ones like, oh, pay the players. You don't know shit about what you're talking about, unfortunately.
Fair. Yeah. I think for them, it's just as long as I go to DKR on Saturday and that Longhorn is held high and we win by 50, I don't care what you do, honestly. That's what the casual fan is thinking, right? You could pay Wes $8 million for all I care. On Saturdays, though, we better win. And by the time January comes around, we better be the last one standing. That's all the casual fans stand.
Well, you're exactly right. And this is what Chad and I talked about. And this is why I don't know if you guys read the War Room notes or in that discussion that we talked about the War Room. It was concerning that big money donors behind the scenes are looking at this new era of college football or college sports, and they're like, not really used to that. Don't know how we feel about that yet. Well, you better get ready, because
Because
what's
it's
going to
coming.
happen in
Whoa.
2025 is you are
It's big.
Texas. You are the
Yeah.
biggest player in the space when it comes to those green pieces of paper. And if you are not willing to come out of the blocks hot, you will be passed up. Period. Because we all know that the BMD pool for money into NIL collectives, into the athletic department, Chris Del Conte is the best fundraiser in America.
Yeah.
Period.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if big money donors don't collectively agree upon this is what being successful looks like now, they'll get passed up, because where you have 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25, 30 giants that are willing to have ginormous checkbooks, guess what, man? A million ants can kill big animals. You're going to take an Ole Miss collective that's had like a bunch of backwater people or whatever that are, here's $100, here's $200, here's $300, here's 5,000, here's 10,000, here's 20,000, what have you. And those schools want to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they
Texas,
have
if you want to get used to winning,
they're taking in the door.
You better swing your Texas-sized sword.
Yeah.
And that's been the topic, right? So
yeah, I mean, going back to your Ole Miss is doing that right now with NIL, right? They're swinging for the fences.
They were doing it with Hugh Freeze.
Yeah,
they were doing it with Hugh Freeze back in the day.
Yep.
So
when it was illegal.
A very, very interesting conversation for sure. Any final thoughts before we move on to the final topic of the night?
Not from me. I think that this conversation is going to be one that's going to be a constant learning process.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to see a lot of shady crap, kind of rise to the surface. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be, really disappointing. We're going to look at this probably in a few years and be like, man, that's not the college football I know, or that's not the coach that I thought I knew, or whatever. And guys, you just need to kind of strap yourself in and get used to it, because you need to look at college athletics as semi-professional athletics, period.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the reality of it. Yeah. Tim, any final thoughts from you?
No, I want to see how things actually work out, if there's going to be any structure at all. Are these schools going to get together and try to form some type of structure across the board? I think that would be smart for them, but I just don't necessarily know. As far as the NCAA, I really don't like saying this, but like that paying out that $2.9 million is probably one of the worst days for the NCAA, probably ever. Having to go into that settlement like that is just it's they're losing power, and at one point in time, nobody liked the NCAA, but again, I do like some type of structure, that I come from that, playing football as long as I did. So the fact that the NCAA has a payout this big is going to be interesting, and I wonder how these schools are going to handle it within the next couple of months.
I think this is the start of the inevitable. And the inevitable is the NCAA is going away.
Yeah.
And I think things like this, NIL, pay to play, paying players, this is all just things that the next thing it might be next year, might be 2 years from now. Oh, by the way, the commissioner of the NCAA no longer exists. You now have a general manager. So, I mean, I don't think that is too far. Not a commissioner of the NCAA. I don't think we're too far fetched away from that. Each conference has their own commissioner, and then there will be a commissioner over the entire thing that oversees all of college athletics. And I don't know if they continue to call it the NCAA, whether that's a restructure. But I think that's where we're heading, evidently. And I think this is just another step to that conversation. So, real quick, Tim, I want you to take this next topic as we talk about EA Sports College Football. I will be back in 2 seconds while you continue on with that.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get right into EA Sports College Football 25. As you know, as you guys may know, over the last couple of days, we've had some leaks We've also had a couple of things coming out from the influencers that have been to Orlando, Florida, in the Tiburon Studios, where they've got to play the game. And we've so far heard that there's a lot more information coming out. Now, Wes, what I want to talk about with you is what do you expect from this game? I know a lot of people have their opinions about EA. Again, me and Harish have both worked for EA for over 10 years. So we kind of know how things work in regards to college football, the rollouts, things of that nature, the ins and outs and the intricacies. We've seen how they've done things in the past. We were there the last game that they came out with, which was NCAA 2014. We were there, man. We were like young pups, basically fresh out of college, but we were there and had the opportunity to experience that. What are you expecting to see within EA Sports College Football 25?
What am I expecting? So wanting and expecting are two different ends of the spectrum.
Well, give us both. What do you want and what do you expect?
What I want is not a reskin Madden game, number one. Number two, I want there to be a quality of ancillary features in the game. Mm-hmm. So when I say that, I mean that everybody loved Road to Glory. Everybody loved the recruiting aspect of, Dynasty mode. Mm-hmm. Everybody loved playing online Dynasty. And if you can keep those features intact, I would love to see Herb Street and Brad Nessler still on the call, but I know that's probably not going to happen. I think right now it's Chris Fowler, right?
It's Herb Street and Fowler,
yeah, which is gonna be great, right? But as long as they can keep, I guess, the fan, the college football fan at the center of every decision that's made instead of money, then I will be happy. Now let's talk about EA's history. EA has just didn't EA acquire BioWare?
Yes.
Yeah, they did.
So in 2009, I believe. Yeah.
I'm a diehard RPG guy.
You're a BioShock fan.
I'm a BioShock fan. I'm a Mass Effect fan. Dude,
Dragon Age.
Dragon Age, Fallout, Skyrim, any open world RPG, Dragon's Dogma, any open world RPG I can get my hands on, I'm going to play. The Witcher. And so when EA acquired BioWare and they shit out Mass Effect Andromeda, I was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to expect moving forward. And not to mention all the sports games, right? So EA, if you're listening to this, what I want you to do is just do the right thing. Keep the fan in mind. Keep the player in mind.
Yeah.
You already made your money back in pre-orders for the entire development budget of the game. So
that we know. That we know. To be fair, and Harish, I don't know if you actually played that game. I remember playing and I remember playing
too.
I remember playing Andromeda prior to its release. The Andromeda that we got, like the Andromeda that the public got versus the Andromeda that I played, were two different games. I think what ended up happening is that they were, I don't want to say that they were rushed, but I think that they were rushed to get the game out. Because they at one point in time, the game was pushed back like a couple of times. So with that being said, they had like a basically a final due date from the top that needed to go out.
Terrible
regardless of what the product was. And so a lot of things got cut out, a lot of story got cut out, and they just kind of meshed together a game and kind of put it out there.
You want to hear something hilarious? Is Dragon Age Inquisition right now. I've beaten that game twice. I was on my third playthrough, and I was I got to the point in the game where I would consider myself like, this is my last playthrough. I'm not playing this game anymore. And I had gotten really, really far, but I was loving what I was doing in the game.
Yeah.
On Xbox, the program files are corrupted. So every time you start up the game and it tries to connect to the EA servers, the game will crash unless you go into offline mode. So if you try to start off the game in offline mode, if you have any DLC, you cannot play your save.
Not there because it can't connect to servers.
That's a classic. The Bible. It's been a problem for 4 years. That's just a classic EA thing, right? As long as you don't do that shit, I'll probably just be happy with the game.
Right.
Yeah. And kind of to go back on your thing about, you know, the game that you played versus the game that it is today are two completely different things.
Oh yeah.
I also play EAFC a lot.
I heard that game is great.
It's terrible. The game is trash. So much trash that
ouch.
And you know what? I think I'm going to take the Ultimate Team route of this because I don't think it's just an EA thing. I think it's just an industry thing.
Yeah.
They've taken the aspect of Ultimate Team and the cool aspect of, hey, build your like glory team, the best team ever, all your favorite players and all that.
Team Legends, yeah.
Yeah. They've taken the concept out of that and it's been money driven for every single title out there. FIFA, Madden, 2K, MLB The Show.
2K at least releases, but 2K releases a quality product, not a great product, but a product where when I play it, I'm like, this is kind of better than the last one. Madden was better in 2008 when Sean Alexander was on the cover than it is today.
God. I disagree.
Are you what?
I think Madden, and I don't play a lot of Madden. Tim is more of a Madden guy. I don't play a lot of Madden.
I play a lot.
I think
the running animations look like you were shitting your pants.
Gameplay wise, I think this year's Madden is probably the best gameplay Madden they've had in 10 years.
I would say at least since 2019.
It's gotten better.
Let me tell you why.
This Madden is an improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me tell you why. A lot of people like to blame the engine, right, for the reasons of the issues. The engine is just a framework, right? I mean, just in anything else, right? If you look at gaming as a whole, there's been 3 engines in gaming for the last 15 years across the entirety of every single game that's ever been made across 3 generations, from Xbox 360 all the way to Xbox One X. There's only been 3 engines. It's been Frostbite. It's been what is it?
The Ignite engine.
No. I'm talking about all of gaming. What is the engine most of the other games use? I forget.
Frostbite, Real Engine 4,
Real Engine 3 or Real Engine 4, whatever that is. And I think there's one like other small one, right? And what I've learned about these is these are frameworks, and I think we'll see a lot of this in College Football 25. It's really up to the developer to code the game how they want to play it. So the fact that they're coding in these animations is an EA problem. It's not that, but it's not a problem that they can't fix. It's a problem that they refuse to fix because of deadlines and things that they care more of. I think the one thing that you should look for now. That's being said, those games are what they are, right? At this point, there's nothing you can do to fix them. There's nothing you can. There's been so many different types of games built on the Frostbite engine.
Yeah. Ooh, I have something. I have to see this in the new game. Every single main menu song better be a licensed fight song from a school. I don't want to hear anything else.
Like it used to be. Yeah.
It used to be like that. Yeah.
That would be cool. No, I agree. One thing that I've heard, and again, just people we've spoken to, things that we've seen, is there's some folks that we've spoken to that have already played the game. There was a content creator event last week, and they have said this game is built from the ground up. There's nothing coming in from Madden. They literally started at frame 0 when they built this game, and there will be animations in this game that are not in Madden, and they won't be in Madden.
But I hear that every year from Madden.
I agree.
Madden tell me, hey, brand new animations. Like, I don't give a shit, man. Your game just sucks.
The other thing is Madden is hogtied. EA is hogtied by the NFL license.
True. That's
where a lot of their issues come in. EAFC, quote unquote, formerly FIFA, was hogtied by FIFA on what they could and could not do, which is why they broke away.
So is FIFA not happening anymore?
No, it's the same game, but it's no longer titled FIFA because here's the thing, once you hold the license for a game,
Yep.
you are sworn by that entity to say,
Oh, of course. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's like Star Wars Battlefront and Disney. Yeah. No, I got you.
Exactly.
So
there's
my
that
question.
to it.
So EAFC is literally just FIFA.
It's FIFA.
Yeah.
The FIFA
Now we
engine,
we
everything.
did get information.
Everything is the same, but now they have a little bit more development freedom because they're not hogtied by FIFA. So I'm curious to say this year wasn't very good, and I think a lot of that was decisions that were made on gameplay as the game went. The game started off fantastic actually, and then it just kind of went downhill. I'm very curious to see in year 2, having some time to kind of have some ideas on what they want to do with the game. I'll give them another shot.
Oh, that's
what
so
gives
interesting.
me hope for college football, the NCAA is not involved in this game. So they are open to do what they want with the game. And all the licenses, all the information, all the things, that's why they're having to do it through NIL for the players. And they did it, all the licenses are directly through the conferences and the schools without the NCAA's involvement. And I think that's what gives me promise for this game because the NCAA is not involved.
Man, I sure hope you're right. EA doesn't have a good track record.
They don't, but I do think a lot of what they've wanted to do, and I can tell you a story, and Tim can probably tell the same story. When we were there, Madden 20, was that Madden 25, like the 25th anniversary, 10 years ago or 12 years ago. So what happens is there's like a list of things that the development studio wants to do, and they store it in our system. We happen to, just be some nosy motherfuckers. So we happen to go find documents, pages and pages and pages and pages of documentation of things that they've wanted to do, things that they wanted to improve with the game, Ultimate Team, all these things. And you'll see like strikes of red through things that they're like, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z. I think one thing that they wanted to do with Ultimate Team was make it possible for a more seamless UI experience. But it was scratched in red, and next to it, they put a reason, right? And it was not approved by the NFL. And these are reasons that they cannot do things that they want to. So I think a lot of what you see or what you don't see or what you want, specifically to Madden, right? We're talking about Madden.
All the red tape behind the scenes.
Exactly. Is a lot of that stuff. And that's a lot of the stuff that the players don't see. Now, obviously, we're no longer written by an NDA, so I don't really care about telling people this. But we've had Matt on the show, who's the guy that's been splitting a lot of the NCAA college football information. And he has told us that, hey, this game is probably the best gameplay football game I've played solely because it's built on this generation up from the ground up. And I think that's the other thing. There's no Xbox One. There's no Xbox whatever. This was built on the PS5, on the Xbox Series X. I think that should give a lot of people like a lot of confidence.
Yeah. It does. But
it doesn't.
Yeah, because like EA hasn't done anything for me to have trust in anything they've ever done. But before they had built. What's up?
I'm just saying that's fair. It's fair that you feel that way, especially within the last 5 to 6 years.
10.
I could
10. You can go back 2 generations. EA has not done well for 2 generations at this point.
But they haven't some like some games that were developed by EA were good. Some that were so like take the Battlefront series for example. Yeah. Battlefront 1 was terrible. Oh no, Battlefront
1?
The Star Wars game?
Battlefront 1 was bad. Battlefront 2 got better and
Battlefront 1 was like you gotta run over the token if you want to play as the Jedi, like whatever. That's right. Battlefront 2 was an improvement.
Sure.
It was an improvement, but guess what Battlefield 2042 was? It was literally what felt like a reskinned Star Wars Battlefront 2. That's exactly what it felt like to me. And that game was so horrible at launch that they were refunding hundreds of thousands of dollars back to players. Yeah. They cannot afford a terrible NCAA launch. Or actually they can. Sorry. They can absolutely afford that. But it'll make them there's so much hype around this game that I feel like the EA will be like a blacklisted publisher for football games. So
Well, unfortunately, money talks.
it does.
So I don't
Loudly.
think EA will ever be blacklisted because they'll always be able to afford it and they'll always be willing to pay it, right?
Yep.
And I think that's the hard part. What they really need, and I saw some rumors today, is they need true competitors. We'll see what happens with Maximum Football. That's been rumored to release for like 10 years now. We still haven't seen it.
I would love
Apparently,
2K to make a football game like they used to, man.
they can't make a simulation game because
Right.
the
They don't
NFL
have the
says no,
license.
right? So again, hogtied by the league. Now a college game, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Remember college basketball 2K games? They
Yeah.
were the best.
They were
They're
decent.
so fun.
I actually didn't like any of the college basketball. I didn't like 2K until like NBA 2K17.
2K10 was my first 2K
Oh,
experience.
10. Sorry, 10.
That
2K10
was a
was
Kobe on the cover because before then it was all NBA Live, and I played the My Career mode on 2K10. And I was like, oh my god, this is incredible because you're like in the summer league and like all this stuff is so fun. It was such a new experience.
Yeah,
But I just started for giggles and boredom, and because I wanted to recreate Luka Doncic's greatness after he's been great this series as a Mavs fan. I just started a new 2K My Career, and it's the worst thing. It's the worst experience I've ever had.
It's pretty bad.
It took me 30 minutes just to figure out how the hell to start the damn thing.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's terrible. But it's the same thing, right? They have no competition. It's the only game on the market. They just kind of do whatever they want.
2K hasn't been good for me since NBA 2K14.
It's been a while. So I think we're kind of battling the same thing. And like I said earlier, it's kind of the same thing across the entire sports gaming market. It's in a very interesting place right now.
You know what's crazy is the way that we're talking about 2K is the way that I feel about modern media in general. So what gaming developers do is as you guys know, they release for the majority an unfinished product with this new age of modern gaming where they can make consistent updates to a game until they finally finish it on a shelf life of usually about a year is when the game after release is finally done.
Right.
And that doesn't include DLC development or release.
Right.
Now it's the same thing with like movies and TV shows, right? So I'm a huge nerd, man. When you met me, did you think I was a nerd or like how?
I actually wasn't even thinking about it.
Dude, I have probably read over 20 Star Wars lore books. I've read all of A Song of Ice and Fire. I've read all the Lord of the Rings. I read my first Lord of the Rings book when I was in 3rd grade. I'm so
you're in there.
Well, the reason why I say that, right, is because take Disney Star Wars, for example. You had Lucasfilm, and Fox Studios, which, by the way, Fox Studios didn't have a reputation of pushing out a bunch of terrible product, right?
Sure.
And Fox made billions of dollars off of the Star Wars franchise. So they gave George Lucas complete creative freedom.
Yeah.
Yep.
George Lucas elects to sell Lucasfilm to Disney. I draw an apples to apples comparison in this conversation with Disney and EA. Disney got a hold of that, right?
Yeah.
And in my opinion, butchered Star Wars outside of like The Mandalorian.
Right.
It's the same thing with like Lord of the Rings and Rings of Power on Amazon Prime. That show sucked, in my opinion. I thought that show was horrible.
What'd you think about Fallout?
I loved Fallout. I thought Fallout was legit. You know why? Because they kept the player experience at the center of the conversation. Like, what do you as a player, what do you feel like this was in the game? Boom.
Yeah. What's crazy is I hated the Fallout series as a game.
You hated it?
I hated it.
Why? It's depressing. It's a depressing game.
And then Fallout, I didn't even touch Vegas. I couldn't. Fallout. Now, granted, I might go back and
New Vegas is the best one.
New Vegas is the best one.
When I first played Fallout 3, I was like 16, 17. And I just I wasn't too into those types of games. So I might go back and replay it now.
You definitely
might check out Fallout Vegas. But yeah, I was just never a fan of the Fallout series, like as a gaming series. But I love the show. I thought it was
Fallout New Vegas was unbelievable, dude. Yeah. And if you watch the show and you go back and you play Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas, you'll be like, oh, wow. Now, they need to release a remastered version of that game, but these are the two best gaming franchises of all time, in my opinion. Mass Effect for me was the best game I have ever played, period, outside of maybe The Witcher 3.
Sure.
But Mass Effect was incredible outside of the first ending that they had for Mass Effect 3.
Yep.
That was awful. Mass Effect and the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. So I love Skyrim.
Everybody loves Elder Scrolls. Oh yeah.
Oblivion
sure. Oblivion was so good.
Dude, I tried to go back and play it. I can't play it because it looks so bad.
It looks terrible now. It looks so bad.
Hey, we're getting a new one, right? Isn't Oblivion like whatever the next Oblivion is or the new Elder Scrolls is? Isn't that coming out sometime in life?
It's rumored.
No, I don't for another 3 years.
I don't believe it. I won't believe it until I see a trailer.
Well, they did like a little teaser like 4 years ago, and they were like, "We'll finish Oblivion or we'll finish Elder Scrolls 6 after Starfield." Starfield was so bad.
I wanted it to be good so bad.
Me too. I really tried.
I couldn't even start it. I played like 10 minutes, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not buying this game."
I really tried. It was okay. Thank
God it was free on Game Pass. Shout out to Xbox.
I was expecting a No Man's Sky kind of game where I could like legit fly anywhere I wanted to. Blah blah blah. It's a tiled game, right? Any kind of mini. It's like a ship mini game. Anytime you want to land or take off or space battle, it's fun. I'll probably go back and finish it, but for the expectation I had for it, it was porous.
I could have done without all the flying crap. I don't care about that. Get me into the world. Let me explore. Let me shoot shit and let me have a good time. I don't like the whole flying aspect of that game turned me off. Like I don't even think I flew to the first planet because I had no idea what was going on. I was like, yeah,
it's very difficult. It's a very difficult game. I want to ask you a question, Wes, and I want to kind of rear back to EA Sports College Football. Now that we know what the cover athletes are, right? We found out about 2 weeks ago what the cover athletes are. What do you think Quinn Ewers' rating is going to be?
His rating?
His rating. Like what do you think he's going to be at when the game starts? Pop in the game. You go and look at the rosters because that's what I do. I don't go in straight into a game. I go and look at rosters because
his rating.
Yeah. I want to see what my favorite team is. So of course I'm going to go look at Texas, and then I'm going to go look at other teams because as much as I like playing as Texas against other people, I like playing with different teams. That's how.
Me too, man. That's not uncommon.
That's how I got
kind of how everything works.
And a lot of people, oh, you're playing as Texas is not fair, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, all right, I'll play as a different team since you want to cry, and I'll beat you that way.
You remember how broken 2006 was with Vince Young and Jamal Charles?
Oh, so much.
I know, and that's why
it's great.
I played with different teams because of it.
Or like 2013 Oregon with DeAnthony Thomas and Marcus Mariota. You're unbeatable in zone read.
I actually made a tweet earlier today. I was playing NCAA 13. I started a offline dynasty as Arizona, and my in the year is against Kenyon Barner, Marcus Mariota, and DeAnthony Thomas. And DeAnthony Thomas isn't even rated high. He didn't go to a 99 until the next year. People don't even realize like 2014, that's when he went to 99. This is like a 90 overall, but 96 speed, like DeAnthony Thomas. And he is absolutely smashing me. I have the game paused because I'm like in a dogfight, like a dogfight on my PS3. My PS3 sounds like a jet engine right now. It's trying to keep it up. It's trying to stay alive.
I will tell you guys that I love Quinn Ewers is my favorite player on the team.
Okay,
and it's because he's just a cool customer, and I love the fact that he talks shit. And I love the fact that no moment's ever really too big for him. That's what I love about Quinn Ewers. Mm-hmm. Now, when I think about what his rating will be, if Quinn Ewers plays to his potential, which is the best recruit ever, he would be, he would win the Heisman. What I think is going to happen is that Quinn will probably be the fourth quarterback drafted, maybe the third.
Whoa.
Because I think teams are going, and depending on how this is preseason, right? So, I think right now he's probably number 3 and 4 on a lot of draft boards with Carson Beck and Jalen Milroe probably going in front of him. Maybe some guy like a Jackson Dart if a team really loves him or something like that. I think Quinn will probably be a 95 or 94, 95 overall.
Yeah.
I was thinking. Yep.
And I think his throwing power will probably be in the 70s, even though he does have a cannon. People don't know that about him, but it'll probably be in the 70s. His medium pass accuracy will probably be in the high 90s. Short pass accuracy will be in the high 90s. Deep ball probably in the low 80s. I think Jaden Blue will probably be like an 88 overall, 89 overall with like 96 speed, something like that. I think CJ Baxter will be like a 92, 91 overall with like 89, 90 speed. So just thinking about like historically what they've done to players. I remember Colt McCoy was like a 64 speed. I was so pissed off.
Didn't he lead the team? What year was that? The 2009, 2010?
That was in
2008
with Tim 2008 with Tim Tebow on the cover, and that was when West Virginia was broken because they had Noel Devine and Pat White, and Florida was broken. Ohio State was broken. Texas was good. They weren't broken though because Colt McCoy was like slower than molasses for no reason.
Yeah,
but he had all the accuracy though. Like Colt McCoy in that game could throw any ball.
Yeah, he could.
But yeah, he couldn't run for nothing. And then that's when the option offense was like starting to become a big thing. So all these schools they had the new controls for the option, and
that zone read was nasty.
That power creep was terrible.
The Pat White, Noel Devine. Oh my God! I think they had Steve Slayton too.
Yeah, they had Steve Slayton. They had somebody
Missouri with Chase Daniel and Jeremy Maclin. Like they were, oh my God, Missouri was freaking good. And then you had Oklahoma State with Zach Robinson and like Brandon Pettigrew.
Pettigrew. Man, Justin Blackman in that game was insane.
Yeah, he was really good. Des Bryant
was crazy.
Des Bryant. Oh,
Des Bryant was a monster. I remember very distinctly in 2008 or 2009 was when Georgia was the #1 team in the country, and they had Matt Stafford, Noshawn Moreno, and AJ Green, and they were unbeatable.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was impossible. I think it was the year that Darren McFadden was on the cover. Was that 2009?
Oh, 9, yeah. Yep, that was the year that Darren McFadden was 99.
Yeah, he was unstoppable. Unstoppable.
Crazy.
So.
All right, Wes, one last question before we get out of here.
Yeah.
What team will you be using in your first dynasty mode?
Man, I would love to say Texas, but I'm always a big fan of a rebuild. And there are a couple of programs that I love to rebuild. I loved rebuilding ECU because I love East Carolina's fight song, and I love the purple, black, and gold. I think it's awesome. Yep. And I love rebuilding Hawaii, and I love rebuilding Troy. In my opinion, if I was a player, I would love to play for Hawaii. Like June Jones Hawaii with Colt Brennan and that squad. Yeah. So Hawaii, ECU, Troy, and San Diego State. Like those were my teams I like to rebuild with.
Okay, facts. Fair enough. Facts. I can't give away my team because then it will give away our video for our online dynasty, so I can't do that.
You know who I actually got one time? I was playing with San Diego State, and Lamar Miller transferred into San Diego State. When I was playing, I was like, "Oh shit!" Really? Yeah. I got Lamar Miller and Matt Barkley. When Matt Barkley transferred to San Diego State from USC, and I was torching people.
Man, that's awesome. I made a press conference, Wes, on who I was going to go with. I created this long, 8-minute video on who I was going to roll with. I sat down and created an interview kind of like this right now with fake mics and a backdrop and just a whole bunch of stuff, man. Just trying to get creative, trying to get the boys juiced up for the game, man. Because it's a year game for us. Once we lock in, once the game comes out, we usually lock in for an entire year.
Hey man, I would love to do an online dynasty with you guys. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I will tell you that there is one team that I have in mind that I think is going to be a dark horse in that game. And it's not going to be a team that a lot of people expect, but I think personally that South Florida is going to be really good in the next NCAA game.
That's
Well,
funny
that'd
that
be
you said
interesting.
that.
Yeah.
South Florida was one of the first teams that got their rankings leaked. They're a 77 overall
There's
team
77 overall.
with a 75 overall offense and a 80 overall defense. Or is it?
I'd have to look.
I just love their stadium, bro. I love where the Buccaneers play. It's cool that like
Yeah, it's a different stadium.
Oh, they use the same stadium. They use Raymond James, don't they?
Yep.
Yeah, like you can see the cannons on the ship and stuff, and the fans are on the ship. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm very excited. You know, we have an online dynasty that over 10 years old now, and we're ready to pick it back up. So we're super excited.
Let me know when you guys start your online dynasty. I'd love to play.
I think we might start another one with like a bunch of our guests because I know Corey Mose from ABC. He definitely wants to jump into one. I think we might start a separate one and have some of our guests, and we'll probably do like a different dynasty. So we'll definitely keep you in mind.
Yeah, please do.
Well, let's go ahead and get out of here, guys. You know, Wes, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. Why don't you go ahead and give us a little plug before you head out of here? Where can people find you? What are you working on, and what should we be looking forward to?
Yeah, sure. So my Twitter handle is at Wes Miller OB. You can see me or the majority of my content on orangebloods.com. My next article and column is going to be what the state of the basketball roster looks like, because it looks like the Texas is probably running second leg behind Texas Tech in the JT Toppin recruitment. So you can find me there, orangebloods.com. And hopefully I'll make some more appearances on here. We can keep talking video games and college football and Texas Longhorns, man. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Tim, where can everybody find you, man?
You can always find me on Twitter, or X as they want to call it, at Tim Wayne. Of course, you can always find me at Longhorn Fan Battle. I'm not the one that's usually talking trash. I'm usually the one that's, talking more about the game, EA Sports College Football. I'm the one talking more about different fun facts and things of that nature about Texas. Again, we're blessed at 100 days from the start of the season. We start in August this year. So that is going to be interesting. I can't wait for that. Again, we're less than 50 days from EA Sports College Football. Always excited about that. We look to have Wes on more. I really appreciate you coming on today, man. That was really dope. But yeah, that's where you can find me. Let's talk. Let's
Let's
sport.
do it, man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You can find me at the Uncle Gandhi. I'm also at LH Fan Battle, and I do talk all the shit, so bring it on. Also, we'll see if College Station's ready for us this week. Shout out to the women's college softball team. Hey, that was a hell of a fight, man. That was
that was a heck of a game.
That was insane. So hoping that the baseball team can pull it out this week. And hey, we'll be back on Thursday night. We'll be back Thursday night for a live show. We'll take a look at the regional there at College Station, and we'll have more news out for you. Until then, see you guys later. Peace.
So, Gabriel.